Okay, we're in part two of Sternberg's successful intelligence theory and WICS model. According to Sternberg, there are four skills that bring about successful intelligence. So there are memory skills. It is important for us to remember the things that we are able to learn. Analytical skills, which allows us to determine elements and to use critical thinking. Of course, creative skills allow us to come up with new ideas, innovations, and practical skills that actually make us implement whatever we learn, whatever we have analyzed, and whatever we have imagined that we can create. According to Sternberg, have each has his own unique way of practicing these four skills because we all have our different strengths. The idea is to further develop one's unique strengths in the context of these four skills. Okay? So that is what brings about successful intelligence. Then he brings together these four skills and brings us the WICS model. According to him, a set of fluid abilities to learn from experience and to adapt to one's surroundings. That is what intelligence is all about. And there is no success without struggle. Now, he viewed intelligence, as we said, as a fluid, um, as a fluid. Intelligence is fluid, and therefore he believed that whatever an individual has, whatever abilities, these can further be nurtured to be competencies and later on cultivated to become expertise. So, whatever we have as potentials, whatever abilities or talents we have, it takes honing. No, as future teachers, we know that it will be our mission to help develop the potentials of our students, and this is all about developing competencies. And if we bring them higher and encourage them to be lifelong learners, then we develop expertise. And this is where the WICS model come in. And WICS is wisdom, intelligence, creativity, synthesize. Okay, so Sternberg believed that the basic idea is that the citizens of the world need creativity to form a vision. What is it that we want to accomplish in life? What is it that we want to see happen in ourselves, in our community, and in the world? And of course, uh, we look at where do we want to go and how do we want to cope with the changes in the environment. Analytical intelligence, we need analytical intelligence to ascertain whether our creative ideas are good ones, and of course, practical intelligence to implement our ideas, and how we should be able to persuade others of the value of these ideas, and wisdom to ensure that the ideas will help achieve what is good for all. Okay, so there's vision, there's analytical intelligence, of course, also creative intelligence, and then practical intelligence and wisdom. So this is what brings about the WICS model. That's why we say it is wisdom, intelligence, creativity, synthesize. You know, I know that you are familiar with the word synthesis, because it is bringing together, as we said, bringing together of different um, things that we learned or different insights into one whole. That is why it is the WICS model. How do we bring in not only intelligence, memory, analytical skills, practical intelligence, but also creativity? How do we put that plus wisdom, no? Being able to think rightly and righteously. How do we bring these three in how we form ourselves as future citizens of the world, and how do we develop this in our students as well? So that is what forms the WICS model. No? So again, it is wisdom, intelligence, creativity, synthesize. How do you bring together your intelligence, your creativity to do unique things, to solve the problems of the world, and at the same time do it for the right reasons, for what is true, for what is uh, what brings about integrity, and that is wisdom. Okay, so let us see one by one. How do you bring this about in the classroom? No, so when you say analytically, because when you say intelligence, you use analytical intelligence. And for Sternberg, this refers also to critical thinking. Okay, so you see, it's a different theory. That's why from Bloom's, which we just had here, Sternberg says that when you teach analytically, you are actually providing opportunity for your learners to analyze, critique, judge, compare and contrast, evaluate and assess. So you will see evaluate and assess is here, no? But in Bloom's taxonomy, it is evaluate and assess would be in a different realm than to simply analyze, no? But for Sternberg, when you say teach analytically, you are already using critical thinking, and these are some of the actions or thought process that you want your learners to do. So examples of this would be critique the design of the newest smartphone. Okay, so when you do that, you are actually teaching your students to think analytically. No? Or maybe we say, assess President Duterte's war on drug strategies. Okay, what do you think of it? Because before you can do an assessment, you have to read about it, learn, and then analyze it, look into the details of it before you can say, I agree or I disagree or I think it's working. I don't think it's working. He has to change some of his strategies, or you think it's really working because that is what we need. So before we are able to say that, we we think analytically and we allow our students opportunities to think analytically. And then another example is compare and contrast Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. So you say, okay, these two persons are running for the presidency of the United States. So what? Okay, how do we teach creatively? When we teach creatively, it is important to share your own creative ideas and to think out of the box. Design activities that help students to create, invent, discover, imagine, suppose that, or predict. So, examples of this would be create an alternative ending for Ibong Adarna. Or maybe, very interesting, invent a dialogue between Duterte and Jose Rizal. What would they actually say to each other? Okay? Maybe they can talk on a particular issue. Or write a poem about what water means to you. Okay. So giving opportunities for questions like this in our class, whether we are teaching literature or we're teaching science, allow our students to think creatively and for us to teach creatively. Okay. How do you teach practically? Have in mind real situations where your students can use what they learn to meet their own and also others' practical needs. Design tasks and activities that would allow your students to apply, use, put into practice render practical what they know, implement, and employ. So every time there is something that we apply, this is very similar to Bloom's cognitive level on application. So that would be something that is practical, and we're able to teach practically, and our students are able to apply what they learn. So example would be, as we mentioned, apply Bloom's taxonomy in planning a lesson, the objectives, the activities, and the assessment. Use one's skill in Excel to keeping track of daily expenses. So you have a particular skill and you use it for something very practical. Okay, use formula in computing for the area of the room to determine the number of rubber mats that you would need to buy. Okay, so it's always good to know things and to be able to really apply them practically. Yeah, how about wisdom? It is important for your learners to balance one's own needs with the needs of other people and also that of the world or the environment. You teach for wisdom when you are able to move your students to try to find a common goal. So it's not always just delivering lessons, but it's about presenting yourself as somebody who cares for the common goal, somebody who's a good person, who's an ethical person. And this allows one to see things from others' point of view. No? And it's also about balancing your interests to those of the others and the institution. It's not me, me, me. It's not always okay, okay, you, but it's really balancing the interests of everyone, and you look at the long term as well as the short term effect or goals in mind. No? That's why we always say we take care of the environment, we keep our environment sustainable, we don't use everything for the short term without thinking of what will happen in the long term. No? We reflect about how one can base his every decision on positive ethical values. It's very important as a teacher that you are able to impart to your students that it is important to be a good person, to be a person with integrity, and also to appreciate that in life, what is seen as true and effective may vary over time and place. We see that we try to open our minds to the perspective of different cultures and different people. And and we try to see that although we have differences, there are basic things that truly make us still brothers and sisters. Okay. And how do you teach for wisdom? We are able to do this if we make our students think and reflect about important things in life. Like, write about the greatest lesson in life you can share with your friends. Or when maybe you can tell them, list 10 things you are thankful for each day. Because when they think about this, they're able to reflect and see why gratitude makes a lot of difference in one's life. Or maybe write an essay, which is more important, competence or character. So you give them a question like this, it will make them think hard. It will make them reflect, na? And in the end process their beliefs and what they stand for. So it's very, very important that we also teach for wisdom. Na? So one of the goals is for learners to learn and see and understand the point of view of others, as we said, and and so it is putting together their ability to remember, no, memory, to analyze, to think creatively, to think practically, and we put this with a lot of creativity and a lot of wisdom, and that is how we have successful intelligence, or that is how we apply the WICS model. Huh? So it is very important that we are able to look into this as we become teachers. It's not only teaching the mind alone, but educating the soul as well. No? So Sternberg presents this model for education that is relevant to the need of the times. Time and again, the world has seen leaders in countries, corporations, communities that they are very much intelligent, but they're not able to bring out the best in their country, or they're even able to cause damage and suffering and difficulty in their own countries. So it is important that leaders do not lack the moral and ethical muscles to really act for the good of the people and not just for their own. So we always say your role, and let me just repeat again, your role as a teacher is not just to educate the mind alone, but to educate the soul as well. So this is what Sternberg um, emphasized to us, the importance of including that very important component of wisdom in our everyday life as a teacher and as a person. Okay, so we'll discuss more about Sternberg in our class. Thank you.